Vandalism, natural decay and the brutal weather have been the factors that have caused the two churches we are covering in today's episode to fall into a state of disrepair. Nevertheless, they still contain beautiful architecture but very different designs, so it was key that we documented them to continue our presentation of religious decline in the UK.
Christianity's central place in British culture is looking increasingly under threat.
Have we ever seen a building that looks more abandoned than this one? Probably not. From a far distance we can make out the old red brick structure that was formerly a church. Since its closure more than 15 years ago it has suffered from extreme neglect, now with jungle-like foliage sprouting from the building. Its position in a large residential area on the outskirts of a city means that it has been a target for vandals over the years. Even though the property isn't particularly large, many entry points have been created and they weren't hard to spot as we patrolled the outside. A fire once burrowed its way through the bottom floor of the church, which was a recreational area. It seems that the site has also hosted the homeless in the past, with signs of needles and makeshift beds. At the beginning of the 20th century the parish was founded and kept service for just over a century until the early 2000s. It passed through generations of pastors before closing, probably due to maintenance fees or potentially lack of the expected congregation. In the state the building is in, it doesn't seem like it can be saved, as there are collapses throughout and strong levels of internal decay.
Oh yeah. This building's pretty fucked.
We had to search closely for points of interest as we made our way onto the second floor until we reached a large stained glass window indicating that we were close to the main attraction.
Oh jeez. This is a lot nicer than I thought it was going to be.
The main hall was a lot more intact than we expected. Two of the three sets of pews stood upright, all facing an altar with an organ in great condition considering the damage facing the rest of the church. Also impressive were the many stained glass windows that retained a lot of their original colour and detail. On the opposite end to the altar was an especially ornate window boasting various coats of arms, we assume for nearby constituencies. This was quite an unusual church hall, however, because it felt almost like an American-styled building of this nature. With the arched ceiling and two corridors between 3 rows of pews, we felt as if we were seeing something that you don't see much of today, which is what we look for when we approach urban exploration. The cracks were visible opposing all the beauty, in the likes of the vast crevices appearing in the walls and the crumbling balcony. It doesn't look like the structure can take much more neglection. Sadly, the only outcome of a building in as damaged a condition as this is demolition, or just further ignorance before it eventually caves in on itself. In an entirely different area, the second house of God we are showcasing in this episode is located on a rural hillside next to this huge lake. Beside someone's house, a tiny chapel is struggling against all the elements. Externally, you might think that this building was a shed or workshop for the person living in the house, but the two aren't connected. Actually, the inside is completely unique. A historic little structure, the chapel has sat here since the 1930s. As we were about to see, its recent years of disuse has caused it to be unusable ever again. The chapel is a total time capsule and unbelievable to see in person. Believe it or not, all the damage you see is natural. A building built out of wood was a dedicated idea, but years of abandonment obviously weren't thought out during its construction because it has suffered major effects since it's shut. In the town where the chapel lies, a strong Roman Catholic population were living, but they had no place of worship. Therefore, the chapel was built in the early 1930s. One interesting fact about its life is that this is the same structure built in the 30s, but not at the same position. Due to the building's size, the chapel was moved and rebuilt using its original materials. It closed in the late 90s after it was decided that the church was too unsafe to continue taking in the capacity it was. Here are some of our pictures from the religious sites shown in this video. Remember to see our Instagram page if you wish to follow our photography in depth. You can find the link in the description.
Look at this. That is so bad. The floors in here are crazy and you can't really see them either because of the carpet on them.
With the rain pouring outside, we had seen the basics of the building and were starting to look for the smaller details we had missed on our first look. There are many trinkets and items stuck in alternate eras that show the untouched state of the chapel. In the kitchen, for example, we found old kettles and cutlery as well as a book collection in another small room. Covered in cobwebs, these items signify the slow decline of the property when no protection was given. The only end result for both of these structures is demolition, which captures the downfall of religion as it progresses over time. Next time. Decay is an understatement for this humongous asylum that we will present in our upcoming episode. The building was the largest of its type that we have ever set foot in. Thanks for watching the third episode of Religious Decline. We hope you enjoyed it. Can you think of any other series we could start? Let us know in the comments below. See you next time.